Hello and welcome to Guitars for Bars. I'm your host James. Today we're going to paint Ben's Jackson RR3. It had a perfectly good paint job on it originally, but he didn't like it, so we're putting white sparkle on it and some Randy Rhodes pinstripes. As you can see, I've already got some primer on it. It's been sanded smooth and level, so it's ready for primer and paint today. Possibly the glitter and the clear, we'll have to wait and see how the white's going to come out once we get it on there. I'm going to use the DP 401 hardener with the DPLF primer, the gray stuff that I mixed up on here. You did that on an earlier video with the solo Flying V guitar. So that's some gray mixed with some white. And I'm going to mix it in this little fruit jar, and it'll give me just enough. I'm going to put about 2 coats on it. It doesn't need to be thick, just needs to cover all the bare spots and give me a nice even coat to work with to put the white on. I'm going to spray using this cobalt sprayer, which I have not cleaned the trigger yet. So when I let off the trigger, it keeps blowing air, but the paint stops. So I'm not going to worry about that. I just got done with the Solo V yesterday, and I haven't had time to tear that apart and clean it up. So I'm going to go ahead and spray the primer on this. I've only got a couple coats of primer on it that I've got to put on it. And then I'm going to do the paint with a brand new sprayer, which I haven't tried yet. So I'm going to just get this primer on here and we'll go from there. Oh, and I do have it bolted up to the rotisserie. If you haven't seen my rotisserie video, check that out. I did make a new base for it. I took that other piece of particle board off and threw it away and replaced it with a much nicer piece of particle board. I've got 35 pounds of weight on this end of it to hold it down so that the guitar don't end up falling and hitting the floor. Now you get to see this thing in action. Alright, I manually pulled the trigger thing back out so the air would quit spraying. This first coat, I only wanted to hit the spots that I sanded through. So the next coat, I'll do the whole thing, and then hopefully I got enough primer, we'll do it one more time, and then it'll set for 1 hour before I do the paint. Now this PPG stuff is designed for a body shop so that you can get a car done all in one day. You spray the primer, you wait an hour. You spray the paint, you wait 2 hours, you spray the clear, next day you buff it and the customer gets it. So that's okay, time for a full coat of primer. primer didn't go as far as I thought. Got to mix up another batch. Well, I got used to using that Iwata RG2 sprayer on the Solo V, and a little bit of clear goes a long way with that sprayer. This thing here, it spits out a lot of paint. So I got another batch of clear primer mixed up, and I'm ready to get started. So here we go. And the trigger's still sticking. All right, I ran out of primer when I was doing the front last time, so I'm going to give the front a coat, and I'm going to let that sit and then come back and start over on the whole thing. "20-minute break time." All right, if we're lucky and everything goes right this time, this will be the last coat of primer. Then we wait an hour and paint the paint. Trigger's still sticking. Oh, I blocked this up so it'd sit flat during break time so they wouldn't run to one side. See how it wants to tilt? That's because that one wing's bigger. All right, let's start with the ends. FYI, I really don't like these HVLP guns. They don't atomize very good. At least this one don't. And the other ones I had didn't work that great either. You don't get much overspray, but it sure spits a lot of stuff out. I used to use a Sears Craftsman touch-up gun. I had a lot less runs when I was using that, but it got old and wore out, and I got stuck having to get this. Alright, I still got some primer left, so I'm just going to blast that on the back side of that BC Rich Beast that I've been working on, because I didn't quite get it fully coated. But this one's done. An hour from now, I'll mix up the paint and put the paint on it. Alright, this beast needs some body work. It had been dropped and it had split there. So what I did, I took a saw and I sawed a big gap out big enough to get a piece of hardwood in there. And I cut me a hardwood sliver and got it in there. JB welded it all in place. So that all has to be sanded out real good. I still got some of the original lacquer here I got to get rid of. Same thing over here. Same thing right in here. So I'm not going to worry about getting primer on that because that's going to get sanded off. Problem is I've got some bare wood and I just want to get it all sealed up in some primer right now just so I can handle it without getting my oil from my hands into any of the wood where it might happen to be bare that I don't see it. So you can see I did a pretty sloppy job of getting the stuff on there last time because I don't care. I'm going to go back and sand most of it off again before we finally do the actual primer and paint on this, just like I did this Jackson, except this is not getting sparkle. Right now I'm thinking an antique white with like a black edges and skulls, lots of skulls. So let me know in the comment section what you think, but I think that's where I'm going to be going with this one. I want to talk about atomization. You can see right there how rough that is. Now that's just spraying the primer on here. And if you saw my solo V, the last one where I sprayed the clear on it, and you saw how slick and shiny that clear was, that's because that Iwata sprayer atomizes the paint a lot better. Now by atomization, what that means is it makes a really fine mist. This stuff does not make a fine mist. It just spits big gobs out. These HVLP guns, I don't like them at all. But there's no way in hell I'm going to put any of this primer through my Iwata gun because it'll just clog it up and ruin it forever. So I use cheap guns for primer and expensive guns for clear. Now I'm not worried about trying to get rid of any of that orange peel. I'm going to bury it under about 5 layers of paint, which then tomorrow I'm going to sand a bunch off, touch up, and then start the clear and the glitter. So all this orange peel here will be gone. The thing about this primer, it's not a primer surfacer, which is meant to be smooth. This is an epoxy primer. This is basically glue that holds the paint on. You spray it on there, you let it sit an hour, and then you put the paint on. The whole idea of this stuff is to get the paint on it while it's still kind of soft, and then the reducer can eat into this just enough to really hold on so that you get a real good bond between the paint and the primer. In the same way, in a body shop, you paint the primer, the paint, and then the clear with the same thing. You got 2 hours between the paint and the clear. That way the clear can eat into the paint. Now, this kind of paint, the PPG paint, a lot of it, you've got a day or two yet that you can spray on it without sanding it because it doesn't quite harden up enough and the reducer will eat into it pretty good. But after that, you got to sand it. You have to sand it. Now, I'm going to go ahead and paint the paint today, and while it's still relatively soft, I'll sand it tomorrow and I'll still be able to smell it pretty good when I paint it, and that'll open it up. And then when I put the touch up and the clear on, it'll have basically fresh paint to stick to.